The Water Temple, one of the most well-known dungeons in the series, mostly because a ton of people don't really like them, especially the 3D ones. However, why is this? What could be the reason for this hatred? Well, let's find out. In the Legend of Zelda games, there are 3 water temples that are mostly disliked. The Water Temple from Ocarina of Time, Greatbay Temple from Majora's Mask, and Lakebed Temple from Twilight Princess. The other ones seen in games like Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild either use a completely different concept or aren't really water-based. For example, the Ancient Cistern has some of the elements here and there, but a huge part of it is completely different. And the one seen in Breath of the Wild is still a puzzle box like the one seen in Ocarina of Time, but besides that, it's completely different. The only thing they have in common is the fact that you need to think globally, and that all the parts inside the dungeon work as a whole. So when it comes down to it, there are 3 temples that people don't really like. Some love them, but overall they're hated. However, why is this? All the others in the game are loved, but these are criticized heavily. What makes them so bad then? Well, for this we will have to take a look at them all, to see what their overall mechanics are and what the problem could be. First up, the original Water Temple from Ocarina of Time. This one started it all and is probably one of the most well-known. Various parts of the temple require Link to go underwater for substantial amounts of time, thus necessitating the Zora tunic. Its enigmatic structure consists of various floors, 4 in total, and requires the use of playing Zelda's lullaby at each of the special markings on the walls that manipulate the level of water, which gives Link access to various parts of the temple from the hub room. Puzzles and objectives are mostly based around the water level manipulation, to swimming in presence of current flows, defeating enemy groups, climbing a waterfall with descending platforms, raise and lower pillars with a switch, and more. Another thing found in this temple is Dark Link, which is essentially a fight against a doppelganger. And the boss of the temple is Morpha, which is some sort of eyeball that controls water. Alright, what kind of faulty mechanics and gameplay elements can we find here? Why does this one suck? Well, there are multiple reasons actually. First up, the fact that you constantly had to pause the game in order to switch to the iron boots and back. This is quite self-explanatory. It's just annoying to access it like that. Each time, it ruins the pacing of the game completely. Luckily enough, when the game was remade for the 3DS, the iron boot became a click-on item. But this isn't the only thing that ruins the pacing. Going in and out of the water also changes the speed constantly, and the climbing out and sinking to the bottom takes up a whole lot of time where nothing really happens. This completely destroys the speed. You're constantly going from fast and on land to slow and in the water, and this remained a problem for all water temples. Another thing is the layout of the dungeon. While the concept of enigmatic structure for a temple is cool, it's really confusing. This combined with the multiple water levels makes it a pain to deal with and also very tedious. You had to go from one place to another, backtrack a lot, and when you're almost done with the temple, it can become quite difficult to find the last pieces of the puzzle. It's essentially structured like a tower with multiple levels all stretching out into different directions, with the water acting as a way of getting to the different parts. Now, on paper this sounds amazing, especially for creating puzzles. However, when it comes down to practice, this becomes annoying instead of fun. There is too much. If you compare the maps of the Fire, Forest and Water Temple, then you can already see the difference. The Water Temple is filled with small rooms, all connected to each other, and big open areas are quite rare. This already creates an extremely messy and confusing layout. You can even walk in circles if you want to. Another thing that makes this dungeon bad is the boss itself. You can grab it with the hookshot, corner it, and then take it out. This isn't too hard to pull off. So overall, it was too confusing because of all the options. The boss wasn't that much fun, the mini-boss was a bigger challenge even, and the controlling water levels mechanic became tedious way too quickly. Now for the next water dungeon, the Greatbay Temple seen in Majora's Mask. Yet again, not a fan favorite. I originally came up with the idea to do this video in one of my streams while we're going through this temple, and as you could have guessed, it annoyed me. hate this dungeon. I really hate it. I really hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitch. It's www.twitch.tv/Dr.Wily's. It's also in the description and on the screen right now. Anyways, to progress within this dungeon, Link needs to open numerous water valves that are part of an extremely complex network of pipes. Doing so enables the functionality of water-based elevators that help Link reach new places. Eventually, he has to invert the direction of the water's continuous flow so that the flux can take him to new parts of the temple. In order to get around, you need to transform into your Zora form and swim through the passageways. All the different valves are essentially connected to each other. The yellow-colored elevator is to gain access to most of the temple itself. The red-colored elevator is to rotate the lever that helps Link invert the water's flow direction, and the green-colored elevator to get to the boss. The final challenge of this dungeon is Georg, which is a huge fish that you need to battle in your Zora form, mostly. Now at this point we start to see a pattern. A complex design based around manipulating water that sounds great in theory, but is awful in practice. All the different things that you need to do all around the dungeon in a specific order can make it extremely confusing for the player, and also frustrating at some point, just like the one seen in Ocarina of Time. And in this temple it's even worse, because the layout is quite weird, because it's all over the place. The one seen in Ocarina of Time at least has quite a straightforward design when it comes to the different levels. Here, it's decided by the holes you swim through. And with the entire thing going the other way around at some point, this can become quite disorientating. Another thing that doesn't really help is that the Zora swimming is a bit buggy and needed a bit more polish. But they made this game in like a year, so it's fine, I'm not blaming them, I'm just saying that it's an issue. Now for the final boss. This one is also problematic. However, not because of an exploit, he is difficult. An enemy that presents a challenge is certainly not a bad thing. It's most certainly the opposite. However, this one is a pain because of the Zora swimming. And every time Georg gets you, there's an animation that plays of Link getting chewed on, which becomes quite annoying to watch after some time. However, if you manage to trap him against the wall and swim into him at an angle, you can take him out. So yet again, not a really good fight. There are just too many small hiccups and things to annoy you. Now for the final dungeon, Lakebed Temple from Twilight Princess. It appears to be a spiritual successor to the Water Temple of Ocarina of Time, but instead of level manipulation, the dungeon's functionality is actually based on the transport of water from its sources to dried rooms. This temple's greatest feature is its rotating central staircase, which must be turned to move streams of water in the dungeon. Using different handles and mechanisms, Link must bring the flow of water to move water wheels and platforms to advance deeper into the temple. Your main goal is to get the water level in the rotating central staircase room high enough to reach the boss door. The item Link receives in this temple is the claw shot, needed to reach the otherwise inaccessible places. In terms of structure, the Water Temple resembles the Fire Temple from Ocarina of Time, having multiple floors and the highest rooms being parallel to each other, as if the two main sides of the temple, west and east, were intended to have symmetry. Yet again, the concept remains the same, however there's one big difference. Everything is centered. While the original extended far beyond the central tower and objectives were scattered all around the place, this version has everything in the middle. Besides that, the overall goal is clear here. The boss is down there, and you need to bring the water down and fill up the hole. You can even see how far you are, so this is certainly an improvement, but it still has some of the hiccups the previous ones had. It's quite chaotic and can get on your nerves, especially near the end when you need to look for the final bits. The water dungeons have too many small tasks and puzzle pieces scattered throughout, creating a lot of backtracking and confusion near the end of it all. Now, the Zora suit is a lot easier to control than the Zora form, so that's already a huge improvement, but its startup is a bit slow. The boss of the dungeon is also one of the better ones. It has two phases. The first one is a bit of an introduction, and the second one has Link swimming around freely, chasing it. Adding that first section certainly helped. Now you have time to settle in and get used to the mechanics. The second round is also a huge improvement because of the fact that swimming is a lot easier and you can get to your target effectively by using the claw shot. As many of you probably noticed, this dungeon is a combination of the one seen in Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. The central tower design with all the switches around the building, but this time with the control button in one place, the Zora armor that's similar to the Zora form, but this time the controls are better, and the boss itself is a combo of Georg and Morpha, but this time the fight is a lot smoother and the claw shot is extremely handy. The lakebed temple is certainly the best classic water temple in the series, and certainly improved the format seen in both of the N64 games. However, there are still some hiccups here and there, and maybe we will never see a perfect water temple, or at least a great one. The water that changes the pacing will also be a problem forever, unless they go for a design where everything is underwater. It's certainly a tricky concept to get right in practice. All we can do is hope that one day, a great one appears in a game. Hey there, before you go, be sure to go to my Twitch, www.twitch.tv/Dr.Wilys. It's also in the description and the comment section. Give me a follow there, I stream every Friday and that's always fun. And be sure to click on other videos and subscribe if you want to see more.